A busy holiday weekend, criminals released from jail due to alleged tampering at the state drug lab, a look at regulatory services in Barnstable, and Senator Dan Wolf comments on wastewater. All this and more on today's episode of Barnstable Today. It's Tuesday, October 9th, 2012. I'm Sarah Colvin. Election Day is rapidly approaching. If you're not registered to vote, you must do so prior to October 17th. Make sure to check with the town clerk's office before that day to ensure your voter status. Of course, your status can change and render you ineligible to vote if you didn't turn in your census, if you moved and didn't change your address, or for other reasons. If you have questions, contact the town clerk's office. The office will be open until 8 o'clock, October 17th, for your convenience. Another holiday weekend is behind us, and Barnstable Chief of Police Paul MacDonald says the department was busy over the Columbus Day weekend.
We have a long weekend like this. It starts at Friday at 4 o'clock, and it goes through Monday at midnight. We answered 466 calls for service. We had 21 arrests, one arrest for drunk driving, and our number one call for service over the weekend was the motor vehicle accidents, just because of the sheer number of people that are down here, people not paying attention, they're looking for directions, the roads are overcrowded, and we had 23 motor vehicle accidents, and unfortunately one of them was a fatal accident up at Route 132 in Attic Lane.
86-year-old Eugene O'Leary of Medford was killed in that crash. It happened about 1:30 Friday afternoon at the intersection of Route 132 and Addicts Way. Chief MacDonald says the driver, Mary O'Leary, had apparently tried to make a U-turn on a red light. The cause of the accident does remain under investigation. Meanwhile, the state attorney general is continuing to investigate alleged tampering of evidence at the state drug lab. Because of the alleged tampering, several criminals are being released from prison on personal recognizance. Chief MacDonald says 4 such people are back in Barnstable.
4 were released on Thursday. 1 was released on Friday. 4 of the 5 individuals were our cases. One of them was Anastasia Fuller, a.k.a. Anastasia Zenoff. One of them was Kasky. The other one was Eric Danforth. These are all frequent flyers, individuals that we deal with all the time, individuals that we were looking for. 2.5 years ago, when we had that level of violence in around downtown Hyannis, we identified numerous individuals who were involved in that, and these are all the same people coming back. These individuals were being released for the drug charges, but they were involved in much, much more serious crimes than just that. So this is a concern for us, and we are setting up our teams again, and we're going to use the same tactics and go back out again.
But the chief says just because they're out of jail, it doesn't mean the charges have been dropped.
They just released a personal recognizance. It does not mean the case has been dismissed yet. The district attorney now is going to take the time and go over with our detective division and look at the cases and see which one we're going to bring them forward. The cases have not been dismissed, but because of that particular chemist was involved in the case, they want to look at all the evidence. Was the evidence tampered with? Was any records forged, or did she perjure herself at all in any of these trials? If not, we have the right to bring all these trials back again. So these certainly are not done by the stretch of the imagination. We can bring charges back out against individuals. Actually, the charges are still pending again.
Chief MacDonald says that the cases in Barnstable largely involve pills instead of powdered drugs like cocaine or heroin. Because pills are more difficult to tamper with, Chief says it's likely the original charges will stick. Well, striking a balance between the needs of the business community and the needs of the general public is at times a difficult task for the regulatory agencies in town. Director of Regulatory Services Tom Geiler says the licensing authority generally deals with the rights of the business owner.
The topic of discussion at a licensing hearing it is all about the licensee's ability to comply with the rules and regulations. But it really doesn't get into discussing the rights of neighbors, the rights of adjoining businesses. But the regulations themselves are set up to try to protect the ability of someone to hold a license without having a negative impact on their neighbors.
But Geiler says regulations are crafted with everyone in mind, and changes are the result of teamwork amongst business owners, residents, neighbors, and others.
There's a lot of that activity that takes place that isn't in the spotlight, but is a part of the process with an attempt to ensure that everybody benefits, that nobody is just thrown under the bus and have to take the bad whether they want it or not. So I think it's important to look at that process. It's important to look at new regulations to make sure that any regulation that's proposed is something that's workable, and participate in that process. It's important for licensees to know what the regulations are, and it's important for the public to know it. All of that is published on the web and is available to anybody. They can call our office with any particular questions. But there's been a lot of effort over the years in trying to make this as user-friendly as possible, while still trying to create the balance needed to make it successful.
Geiler says the success of the changes to the town's outdoor dining regulations are an example of good partnerships. More than a decade ago, outdoor dining wasn't allowed in town. Now it's a thriving part of our economy. Geiler says that's a positive example of collaborating for change.
I mean, there's ongoing discussions about existing regulations as it might apply to individual establishments and so forth. The ability to use outside areas for entertainment, music, where the neighbors are right up at property lines and so forth. That's always a very difficult situation. It's never impossible to coexist, but it takes an awful lot of effort on both parties to make something like that work. So those types of regulations are always looked at because it can mean significant dollars for the restaurant, and it can mean significant inconvenience for residents or neighboring businesses. Even if it was a parking issue where some restaurant is so successful and they don't have an awful lot of parking, and that causes customers to park in other people's parking lots, that forces them to spend time and energy and money to police their own parking lot to try to make sure their customers have access to it, that type of thing. That activity has long been one that has been worked through a process of site plan review, growth management department looking at a shared parking and other options. It's during peak weekends. It's like everybody for themselves. But for the most of the year, it works.
And of course, how to solve the Cape's wastewater issues has long been a topic of discussion, and soon we should see some action in terms of taking steps to solve those issues. Whether each Cape town works individually or whether the Cape works together as a whole remains to be seen. Barnstable officials have been at work for many years mitigating wastewater problems. Cape and Island State Senator Dan Wolf is a proponent of a regional approach with strong participation from each town. Wolf says he'd like to see some action tackling the issue take place within the next year.
The legal pressure that's being exerted and that's going to continue to be exerted. I think within the near future, you're going to hear movement towards at least coming up with a regional plan. I don't think it's going to include a timeline for implementation, but I think that we're going to really work hard to get some resources to put a plan together. And that plan is not a big pipe solution or anything like that. It's a property-by-property assessment of where the damage is and what the solutions will be, whether they be centralized system, cluster system, on-site innovative technology systems, but really to drill down and do a site-by-site study and plan for Cape Cod. And I'm hoping that those resources come in the next 6 months, so that 2 years from now, we have a plan, a technical plan, we have a financing plan that goes with it that will be understandable, so that the citizens of this district realize that this is affordable and doable, and it really is our responsibility to get it done. So time frame is, my best case would be in 2 years. We have a plan, working hand in hand with the towns and the county government, and then we go to the public and really have that discussion, talk about how we're going to finance it, look for resources elsewhere, and then 10 to 15 years from now, we've really reversed this. It is a crisis.
With Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Colvin.